Hi, this is Alex Kantrowitz. I'm the host of Big Technology Podcast, a longtime reporter and an on-air contributor to CNBC. And if you're like me, you're trying to figure out how artificial intelligence is changing the business world and our lives. So each week on Big Technology, I bring on key actors from companies building AI tech and outsiders trying to influence it, asking where this is all going. They come from places like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, and plenty more. So if you want to be smart with your wallet, your career choices, in meetings with your colleagues, and at dinner parties, listen to Big Technology Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
More sail, cried the sparrow.
You're listening to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we sit down with everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand.
Welcome back, everybody, to another Sailing into Oblivion podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Today's show, we're going to talk about chartering in the Caribbean, in the Bahamas, and the opportunity to be able to do it basically anywhere in the world you can almost imagine. I sit down with Ian Pedersen, who is the senior marketing manager for the Moorings Yacht Charter Company. And he's been in the yacht charter industry for about 15 years and is an absolute wealth of knowledge on the subject. He and I definitely share a big-time passion, not only for sailing and the Caribbean, but most specifically the British Virgin Islands. I mean, it's just such an absolute gem of a place. It's so unique and it's so special, and it's also right there. And, you know, whether or not you own your own boat and you sail it down there from the East Coast, or if you just want to get a little taste of the action, chartering definitely is one of the best options out there. And as Ian sort of enlightens me, there's a whole lot more to grab a hold of, if you will, down in the Caribbean on one of the Moorings yachts. And it goes pretty deep. It was very interesting and enlightening to really hear all the different options they have. So check out the links in the description. I'll have it for the Moorings, so you can go on their website, and a few other links about all the stuff the Moorings does. And then obviously, if you want to help support this show, this podcast, what we try and do, check out the links as well for Patreon. Thanks. Big shout out to everybody who does that. The one-time donations via PayPal and Venmo, and then obviously all the merch and the books. And also sailingintoOblivion.com if you want to reach out about possibly having me for a speaking event or just some coaching and consulting. Other than that, hopefully you enjoy my chat with Ian. Thanks for listening.
All right, Ian, here on the show. Welcome to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast. Thank you so much for slicing away some time to chat all things sailing and Caribbean and pretty much chartering, cruising, all of it. It's going to be great.
I'm very excited to be here. There's definitely worse ways to be spending, a Friday afternoon than talking about sailing in the Caribbean. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, and like I was just saying, my first and only real question that I definitely had planned out was how you got into not only the sailing side, but what drew you down to the Caribbean specifically.
Yeah, it's a really good question and an excellent place to start. So I guess I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida. It's actually where I live now. It's home for me, and it's really hard to draw myself away. It's just paradise as far as I'm concerned. But growing up in the Tampa Bay area, you're exposed to boating at a very young age, and a lot of it is power boating. So fishing, wakeboarding, knee boarding, all of the go fast water sports kind of stuff that, a teenage boy falls in love with. And I remember my dad for years was trying to get me into like sailing camps and really trying to hammer home how important it is to also learn how to sail. It's not just center console boating is the end all and be all, which to me it was. And never did it. I pushed back so hard. I fought him. I was like, sailing looked so boring. I got to be honest. It does not look exciting at all. And he didn't fight me on it. And he was like, all right, fine. It never happens. But then when I graduated high school, this must have been 2006. we took a family vacation to the British Virgin Islands with the Moorings and did a crude yacht with like the captain and the chef, and it was on a sailboat. And to this day, we still say it was the best family vacation we've ever taken. We used to go on ski trips, and we went traveling to Europe and all the kind of usual, just amazing vacation stops that you would think of. But this was the first time that we really just came away all saying, wow, that was something special. And it was my first real time really being exposed to being on a sailboat, but I just took to it so fast, talking to the captain, all the pulling on the lines and how does this work? And we're going over there. How are we going to do it? And the navigation, all of it. I was enthralled. It was amazing. Went away to college, and then I graduated, and I'm actually a history major. I was going to go, I had this idea of being in dusty libraries studying in Europe or something for the rest of my days.
Nice.
Didn't work out that way, but it turns out that the Moorings corporate headquarters in North America is 10 miles away from where I grew up here in Florida. So I went in, gave him my resume, and a few days later I was hired. Next thing you know, I've been with the company now for 15 years this year. So, I mean, when you talk about hook, line, and sinker, I just fully got bit by the sailing bug and have loved it ever since. And just fell backwards into the industry. And it's just something I've become super passionate about over the years. It's just been a lot of fun to be a part of.
Well, I definitely agree. I mean, a charter vacation, and I've had the privilege to be able to do one or two of those with my family, but then also my time at Bitter End, we dealt with giant flotillas and huge events that we would put on for all these people who are chartering, because the Bitter End's property is open to the mooring field and all the fleet and everything out there. And yeah, I mean, it is such a unique type of vacation because it truly is an adventure. And like you're saying, I mean, you get interactive with it, even if you've got, a captain and a chef. That's one way to go about it. And you can really dive in and learn so much. And then you get to the next level where you do the bareboat charter. And then it's a whole different thing as far as like, oh, we're going to take a vacation. No, we're going to go have an adventure, and we're going to have to be challenged. We're going to see things that, we don't ever really get to see. And we're going to have to really actually get involved with this. It's like, I don't know, it's more of an involved vacation, I think. It's almost hard to call it a vacation in some ways, I think, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And that's at the end, I think you're all kind of on the airplane home reminiscing, and you feel like you accomplished something, especially like you said, taking the all-inclusive crude yacht. I mean, I'll be honest, we were just being pampered for a week. It was incredible. We're not really responsible for anything other than just having a good time, snorkeling, things like that. But then when you do take the plunge and you do a true bareboat sailing vacation where you're responsible for the boat and the itinerary and getting from A to B, and you need to plan everything out, it all sounds very intimidating. But in reality, that's what makes it special. Is it's like, man, okay, we're all going to work together. This is what the weather's like today. We want to go from this island to this island. We're all going to bond and kind of get the boat where we need it to go. And once you pick up the mooring ball, it's like high fives all around. Let's go explore. You really feel, especially the British Virgin Islands, this is not exactly uncharted waters here. This is
right,
as user friendly as it gets. But that's what makes it perfect for if it is your first time doing a charter vacation. It's uncharted to you, but it's very manageable line of sight sailing. And it's, it is just, you get it to dip your toes in the water of that feeling of true exploration and experiencing something for the first time, which I think is just really, really special for anyone. And it's not just for the first time, but if you go the third or fourth time, it never gets old sailing around those islands.
Oh, definitely. Well, and as soon as you start to make the connections and the friends along the way, you start to be able to be on a first name basis with people on Cooper Island and up in North Sound and over on Joost Van Dyke. And it's kind of like, it really, the islands are great. The ocean is great. And the people are absolutely amazing. And like you're saying, I mean, the British Virgin Islands, very unique. very user friendly. There's not a lot of super shallow spots that you're going to run aground, as opposed to some of the stuff in the Bahamas. And I think that's one of the things that does make the British Virgin Islands so unique, is that you've got all these different little islands everywhere, but it's deep water in between, and it's real sailing, and you've got to deal with the elements. But then, like you said, you get to that mooring field at the end of the day, and it's like you feel like you've actually done something. It really is
100%.
It's so
I don't
unique.
care how much of an expert sailor you are, it will always feel like an accomplishment at the end of the day, whether it's your first time doing that or like the 10th, like I said. And, I don't know, just everything you're saying is exactly why the BVI remains so popular. And it's why it's our main destination as well. I think we have over 200 boats in the British Virgin Islands alone.
Yeah.
Moorings, that's where it started. To this day, it is our home away from home. As far as I think we have 20 destinations all over the world, but the British Virgin Islands remains the heart of our entire operation. And it's just such a special place. It's like you could not have planned, situated these islands any more perfectly to experience a boating vacation, whether you're sailing or on a power cat or whatever. It's just the perfect blend of getting a little bit of sailing, like you said, within yards of being offshore, you're in 90 feet of water. So like you said, you're not like in the Bahamas, where I was just in the Exumas a month or two ago, and I don't think we ever saw more than 20 feet of depth. We're probably averaging about 6 to 10 feet the whole week. It makes for some white knuckle moments for sure. And you just don't get that in the BVI. You're in 70, 80, 90 feet of water most of the time in the Sir Francis Drake Channel. Really clearly marked channels and harbors. It's very user friendly. So for someone who's just wanting to experience this for the first time, we always say start in the BVI. And also because sailing from one island to the next, you're maybe sailing for an hour, hour and a half each day, 3 at the most. So you're not on ocean going voyages just on your first trip. It's very manageable, consistent trade winds as well. You kind of know what to expect from the weather for the most part. So it kind of takes a lot of the guesswork and those challenges that can be thrown at you on a sailboat out of the equation entirely. And, it is meant to be a vacation. You want to kind of have a stress-free time on the boat, and that's kind of what it enables you to do.
Well, and with an operation like the Moorings, it's really great that you can have all the different types of experiences, as far as being out there with a captain who, knows every nook and cranny, and also knows what to do when that 30-knot squall just appears over Gorda Peak, and all of a sudden, everybody's scrambling. And you can get that experience, that taste for it. You can learn, and then you have so many different size vessels that you can basically just kind of keep stepping up. And as your comfort level goes up, then all of a sudden you're inviting more people, and the vacation just gets better and better. And the experience, I think it's amazing. We saw a lot of people that would come to Bitter End, and they would take our courses just on our little Rhodes 19s and our IC 24s and stuff. And then a year later, they're on a charter boat with the captain. And then the year after that, they're on a bareboat, and they're coming in, and they're so they're glowing. They're having the time of their lives. And a big operation like the Moorings definitely offers just a plethora of different options for like everybody to slowly get into it or just dive right in.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the appeals. There's a million charter companies all over the world, from really kind of local operations with 5 boats to more global operations that have a ton of destinations to choose from. We're definitely one of the larger global charter operations. I think we've been in business now for 55 years, if I'm not mistaken, 56.
Yeah.
So we know what we're doing. And I think that kind of support is hugely important, especially when you're considering taking your family, halfway around the world on a sailing trip. there's a lot of unknowns and kind of trepidation that go along with that. Even if you really know what you're doing on a boat, there's definitely some nerves before you take the helm of $1.2 million boat that isn't yours. And I think going with the Moorings, there's a whole network of support both before you even get on a plane to get over there, as well as when you're on the water, that it really makes it kind of a hold your hand experience. You're never far from help. And we're a phone call away. Just even if you have questions about, hey, I forgot how to turn on the generator. Can you walk me through this? Where was the panel switch to get this turned on or off? You call us and we'll walk you through it the whole week you're on the water. So you're never on your own, truly, which is definitely a comfort that I'm not sure you get that with every charter company. That's definitely something I would recommend looking very carefully into, depending on who you charter with. But at least, with the Moorings, is something we'd like to hang our hat on, that is that kind of level of support and help throughout your journey.
Well, I mean, yeah, the standard that you guys set, at least in the BVI, which is where I have my experience with it, is definitely top shelf. So not just patting you on the back, but it is well deserved. They do a fantastic job. And it's so funny because my first introduction to both the BVI and Moorings was back, it would have been sometime around 2004 or 2006. I don't know. But I helped take one of the 43-foot, it might have been a lagoon catamaran from Cape Town, South Africa. And we sailed up.
Probably a
leopard cat. Yeah. And we sailed a brand new boat and sailed it in and delivered it to the home base there in Roadtown. And that was like the first time I ever really sailed into the BVI and saw the islands. And then, we're dropping off this beautiful brand new vessel that we had just sailed, 6,000 miles, the vast majority of which was under spinnaker and nothing else. Those trade winds in the South Atlantic were pretty amazing. But that, it just got its hooks in me at that point. And, I didn't return for probably like 3 or 4 years when I started working at Bitter End. But I mean, I can still remember the sight of, I think it was probably Ginger Island was the first one we saw or we passed right by. And it was like, whoa, this place. Because, the BVI, most of those islands aren't super built up by any means. It's not just dotted with houses everywhere. You're looking at these beautiful natural landscapes that haven't changed in centuries. It's crazy.
Yeah. So there's what, 50, 60 islands in the BVI. And the vast majority of them, like you said, are, spits of boulders or sand that kind of jut up and uninhabited. Really gives you this cool sense of, and they do a really amazing job from kind of institutional government level of really trying to maintain that natural beauty and not allowing it to go overboard into, over tourism. And that's why it's just been such a paradise for so long. Really, you go up on a sailboat, drop anchor somewhere, and it's almost like going back in time. So many days that you can't quite get a quintessential kind of local Caribbean experience like that just anywhere. And the BVI does a great job of that, I think, as well as the different islands having so many personalities. Every day is different from
totally.
Cooper Island feels completely different from the very next day going into the North Sounds, and then Anegada is completely different from that. So it's so varied just in such a small area. I don't know many places that you can experience that in the whole world.
Well, do you have a favorite island out of all of them in the BVI?
Anegada, for sure.
Really? You like Anegada? Okay.
Anegada for me, only because I guess on the itinerary I usually take, it's day 3. Day 3, you make the journey from the North Sound up to Anegada, and you pull in there. And when you get to, Loblolly Beach or Cowreg Beach, is this sense of just being at the edge of the world. Yeah. There's nothing out in front of you. You look to your left and right, and there's miles and miles of beaches and you're the only one there. I mean, that's it. There's even the bar that you're at, the bartender's not there. You got to serve yourself and leave the cash that you feel like at the end. It's such incredibly unique experience that you just don't see everywhere. And it's just the ultimate deep breath moment where it just sinks in that, I'm truly on island time out here. That is the ultimate vacation experience as far as I'm concerned, where there's nowhere to be and all the time in the world to get there. And Anegada is that for me. Yeah.
Well, and I think that, it's the one real, I don't know, you feel like you are sailing off over the endless horizon when you leave North Sound and you look out there and you're like, oh, well, where's the island? And
where are we going? Yeah.
You're not going to see it for another, hour or so. But because it is technically, is it an atoll or is it?
Yes, it's a limestone atoll. And it's the only island like that in the BVI. Everything else is, volcanic, granite, mountainous boulders kind of structure, and then Anegada is just way off in the distance, literally no taller than the trees. You just see the trees kind of just poking up over the horizon. Like you said, after taking the leap, sailing off into the horizon towards nothing for a minute, but it seems really daunting. And I think for the longest time, there was this big stigma about, bareboat charters not being allowed to even attempt going to Anegada without a captain, because it is 90% surrounded by a reef. And if you don't know the heading and exactly where the channel is, because even the channel is a bit unique, where you get up there and then you have to run parallel to shore for a little ways before actually cutting in. It's almost like a Z-shaped channel. And if you don't know what to expect, it can be a little tricky, a little daunting, but nowadays with the chart plotters, everything's digital.
Much easier. Yeah.
So good about sharing all that information in advance. There's really nothing stopping you from going other than your sense of adventure.
Well, we did that trip on everything from, Hobie getaways to the Corinthian, which was the big double-decker power cat that we would take, 80 people up to Anegada on that. And that little L curve to get into that dock and everything, we definitely bent a prop shaft or two going over the sand on that big boat. But like you said, it's a whole lot easier now. And this would have been back in like 2007, 2008. I think they even they must have that channel marked a whole lot better
now
than
it's
they
well
used
marked.
to.
You can see it. Anyone listening, follow the channel into Anegada. Do not cut short, because you will lose a prop. Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. Trust me. I had to borrow.
Hi, this is Alex Kantrowitz. I'm the host of Big Technology Podcast, a longtime reporter and an on-air contributor to CNBC. And if you're like me, you're trying to figure out how artificial intelligence is changing the business world and our lives. So each week on Big Technology, I bring on key actors from companies building AI tech and outsiders trying to influence it, asking where this is all going. They come from places like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, and plenty more. So if you want to be smart with your wallet, your career choices, in meetings with your colleagues, and at dinner parties, listen to Big Technology Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Sunchaser Scuba's gear for days trying to bend this, pound this prop blade off of this thing. And, this is a prop that's got 2.5 foot diameter or something like this. Oh, it was such an absolute nightmare, but it was also a fun experience. And we got there and back.
You never made that mistake again. Exactly.
Yeah, those were the good times. But I've always thought it was such an interesting thing, because not to just shift over to the Bahamas, but the way those two island groups sort of took different routes. I sail through, like right now, my boat is in Fort Pierce, Florida. And whenever I get a week or two that I can take off, I basically just jet out into the Atlantic, and I go south and I cut through in between. I go in between the Abacos and like Nassau and the Berry Islands, and then, cut across the stream and get back to Florida. And my biggest sort of danger in that whole area, because it's deep water, are the 150 cruise ships that I see out in that channel. Obviously, they're not going into the shallows where most of the sailboats are, but like obviously the Bahamas chose to go that route where they have a massive cruise ship industry. I mean, absolutely massive. And the BVI, I think, what can they have, two large ships in Road Town at one time, or is it
Maybe
more?
three. They might have room for three at the most on that dock, but yeah, it is relatively limited, and it's not every day that they're in port either. So it's kind of spread out. I mean, you'll have days at a time where there's no cruise ship in port, and it's just and you can go to the baths and you can enjoy Cane Garden Bay without the cruise ship crowd if you time it right, and you can always print out the cruise ship schedule in advance, because then you'll know exactly where not to be on certain days, because it'll completely change the whole dynamic of certain areas where the cruise ship people like to go on their day trips. And if you can avoid that and just go the very next day, you can have the whole place to yourself rather than partying with 200 other people you didn't expect.
Well, and yeah, I mean, especially at a place like the Baths, where if you get the experience of being there where, you're almost the only person or there's only a couple people, it is so different than when there's literally a line of people marching through, and, you can't even stop to take it in because there's just so many people there.
Yeah, it becomes it's either almost a spiritual, natural experience having it to yourself versus just standing in line at like the DMV and this is my nightmare kind of moment.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, no, for sure.
It can be pretty hairy sometimes. So yeah, definitely want to time it right, plan things out so that's a good shout. I don't know, for tips and tricks, that's another one right there for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that is kind of the nice part. Again, when you go with a charter company and you go with a boat that has a captain, they're going to give you that info. It's not like they're trying to hide every secret recipe. No, they're trying to show you the best time possible, because the best thing for them is that they want to come right back and either, have them be the captain another time, or just, make another connection, but get them back. And I think the captains in the BVI do an exceptional job of being basically ambassadors for the country.
Yeah, I would agree. And it is those little tips and nuances that they can provide if you've never done it before. Take the baths, for example. The captain will probably go through the itinerary with you in advance, so we're all in agreement. And he's like, listen, I think we should overnight at Cooper Island, for example, because the next day you want to go to the baths. And Cooper Island is one of the closest anchorages. So what I'm going to do is first thing in the morning, while you guys are still sleeping even, I'm going to make a cup of coffee. The coffee will be ready for you, and I'm going to start sailing to the baths. So we're one of the first boats there, and we're not like scrambling, fighting for a mooring ball. And that at first thing in the morning, we're going to have the whole place to ourselves before any other charter boat even arrives. And that's kind of that VIP level of service that a captain can plan ahead that you might not even think of until after you're already there, and you're like, oh no, we waited too long because now everyone's here.
Right.
And it's just like that every step of the way, that you kind of just get a little bit of extra help every day that just makes it seamless. Or if you're bareboating, you wouldn't know until the second time you do it.
I was just going to say, there's the easy way to learn that stuff. And then there's the hard way. And typically a typical charter is 8 days, 7 days, something like that. So you want to make sure you're getting the absolute most out of your day. And in a lot of cases, if you just jump in out there, you will find a lot of frustration with the mooring buoys or anchoring or crowds and this or that. And that's just another great example of how the charter companies do such a wonderful job of guidance and just, let's get you in there. Let's show you what's going on. And then you guys can take it from there the next 10 times you come down, because I swear I could go, if I had the means, I would probably charter a boat in the BVI every single year for the rest of my life. And I would never get bored. No way.
And people do that. They go once, twice a year. That's how people get sucked into the ownership program with the Moorings or with other charter companies, because they're like, look, I can't even convince myself to do a different type of vacation at this point, because this is just what I love to do and where I love to be. It's that special. So people just keep going back.
Well, and that was the thing. We always would hear that where people are like, well, no, we come to the BVI every year, we have a vacation though that we take, and we go other places, change it up. But they're like, this is just a standard. This is something we have to do. And you don't hear that in too many places, which I think really indicates how special of a place it really is.
Definitely. And I think, once you've done that, and once you become that type of person where you're now a sailor at heart, you're a boater at heart, and chartering vacations is in the blood. You mentioned the Bahamas. You start asking yourself, okay, where to next, right? Some people, they never leave the BVI. They want to go there every single year, but then you kind of get this itch of that sense of adventure where, there's 19 other destinations just with the moorings alone that I could take this exact boat and experience the Bahamas, St. Martin, St. Lucia, and they all have their own flavor that you can experience that really, it's fundamentally the same thing. You're still on a boat, on charter with, your favorite people, but just changing the setting alone completely changes the dynamic of what your goal is and what you experience on vacation. If you're kind of a nature water lover and you just want to go snorkeling and fishing and things like that, the Exumas, I was just there 2 months ago, absolutely pristine, incredible, shallow water, beautiful, beautiful setting. But if what you're there to do is go bar hopping, and taste the painkillers and rum punches, you're going to be disappointed because there's only 2 places in the whole cruising grounds you can even stop to do that. So it just depends, what you're trying to get out of your vacation. I think plays a big role because there's something for everyone at all of these places, and you start to explore and branch out kind of in your sailing journey. And that's been really one of the most fun aspects, I think, of the past 15 years in this industry for me, is kind of getting to sample all these different places all over the world and just getting the nuances. Yeah,
I was going to say, you must have to, quote unquote, have to go and look at each moorings base. Where are the most far flung ones? Do they have them in the South Pacific and everything?
Yeah. French Polynesia is definitely out there, especially from Florida. That's probably a hop and a skip for the Californian market listening, but French Polynesia is pretty out there. The Seychelles, in the Indian Ocean, wow. Thailand. We have some pretty exotic remote locations that are handpicked because they're just perfect for, a 5, 6, 7 day sailing trip without just massive ocean going voyages. Everything is really custom picked to be at least somewhat user friendly, where you're not sailing more than 3 or 4 hours in a day kind of a thing to get from one island to the next. But there's definitely levels to it. As far as BVI would be level 1. If you're going to start your sailing journey, that's where you would go. Then you kind of graduate to something more difficult, like the Bahamas, where you're still short sails, but the shallow water, more careful navigation, things you got to take into account. And then, maybe level 3 would be something like the Windwards, going from St. Lucia down to St. Vincent and, the Grenadines.
Well, that's can I ask you about that?
Up. Yeah.
Real quick, because obviously when you're in the BVI, you stay in the BVI because there's so many islands and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, when you're doing a passage between like St. Vincent and the Grenadines and St. Lucia and stuff, I've sailed those waters quite a bit, and sometimes those get pretty hairy in between the islands and the wind funnels through and stuff. But that's part of the adventure. You can charter in those and go from country to country.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually, because of the distances involved, people want to go from St. Lucia downwind to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and you have to know what you're doing because you're clearing customs. You have to have the right paperwork to clear in and out of different countries as you go. So it's talk about user friendly. Now you really need to know what you're doing, kind of on a grand scale. And
how do you vet people?
Talking about as well.
Yeah. How do you vet the captains? If I wanted to go and bareboat and do what you're saying, go from St. Lucia down to the Grenadines, what sort of vetting process would I go through?
So you have to go. We actually developed our own resume vetting system on our website that you put in your qualifications. I own a boat, or I have experience captaining a boat of this type and size, and this is how many hours I have at the helm, that kind of thing. And once you plug in all your information and your certifications that you may have, because that's the thing, a lot of these Caribbean locations, the country itself does not require formal certification like you see in Croatia or Greece. You arrive and the actual, Coast Guard and the maritime laws say you need to have X certification just to take possession of a charter vessel.
Yeah.
BVI, it's all based on experience. So if you pass, the resume requirements with your charter provider, you're fine and off you go, even though you don't have formal certification. So we have people that have been sailing with us. They're super experienced sailors. They've been sailing for 40 years. They just never got the formal paperwork, with a stamp on it. And that's fine in a lot of the Caribbean destinations. But you do need to qualify through that online resume that you plug in your data, and it'll tell you right away, you qualify to captain this type of boat, or this up to 45 feet or up to 50 feet, and in these destinations. So it'll say, because we have a tiered system. So you can say you're qualified for a 45-foot boat in the BVI and St. Martin, but not in the St. Lucia to Grenada because you don't have enough hours behind the helm or something like that. So we do our best to try to lead people, in the right direction based on their experience level in advance before they just jump in without realizing what they're getting themselves into.
Because sometimes you can kind of jump the gun a little bit where, you have this great bareboat charter in the Bahamas or say in the BVI, and you're like, I want bigger adventure. And you think that same experience will translate to, like going down from St. Lucia to the Grenadines. And they're two very, very different beasts, or at least they can be. You can still have a pretty gnarly day just trying to bash your way up the Sir Francis Drake Channel, to get up to the Baths. If the Christmas winds or the strong January trade winds, like, it can be like, holy cow, like, hold on, this is pretty crazy. But nothing like, when you're actually going in between those islands that far down south. Very interesting. I never knew that. I kind of want to go, after I do this, go on the website and plug in my qualifications.
And we even go so far as to facilitate what we call the one-way drop-off, for example, because it's a round trip. You need to bring the boat back when you're done with it. So if you start in St. Lucia, you got to bring the boat back to St. Lucia. But so many people want to make it all the way down to the Grenadines and Grenada. We actually implemented like a one-way drop-off option where you actually leave the boat in Grenada, where we have another marina that you could start in Grenada as well if you wanted to, but you leave the boat at a Moorings marina in Grenada after sailing all the way south, island hopping, and then you fly home from Grenada and you just pay a fee basically where you hire one of our captains to sail the boat back to St. Lucia for you, so you don't need to beat back up winds, and you get to actually spend more quality time at each location because you don't need to worry about, I only made it so far, but I got to give myself enough time to get back up north, right? So,
right.
Talk about a customizable option. We really do our best for everyone to really get the experience that they want, depending on where in the world you're sailing.
Oh man, that's fantastic. As a service for sure. Although in my life and the sort of sailing I do, I think I've just become so not immune to suffering and discomfort of these long ocean passages, but I really look at them from the angle of like, bring on as much of this as you can, because once I do get to where I'm going, the relief and the joy that I'm going to feel is like super amplified. But that's on my side of things. That the idea of being able to do a one-way down the island chain. Can you go all the way from St. Martin and do a one-way down to Grenada?
You can. I started off my employment with the Moorings as what we call vacation planners. They're the people that answer the phone when you call to organize your trip. And I did that for like 2 or 3 years. Before I switched over to the marketing side. And I remember one of the last charters that I helped organize before I switched from sales into marketing was this guy. He wanted to sail from the British Virgin Islands. He wanted to pick up the boat there, and he basically wanted it for a month. And he wanted to island hop all the way down, ending in Grenada. And I think what his plan was, he was going to split it up into weeks. So the first week he would have a group of friends and family come down and join him, and they would do a couple days in the BVI and then sail to our base in St. Martin.
Yeah.
And they would fly home from St. Martin, and a new group would come down. And because he's at a moorings base, he can swap out all the towels and bed sheets and reprovision and refuel and all that stuff with us. And then that group would do the St. Martin group, St. Bart's, and then sail down to St. Lucia or Antigua. And then they would fly home, and he basically split it up into 4 different individual charter weeks. But he was the captain the whole time for a month, experiencing the whole length of the island chain all the way down the Caribbean. And it's super unique. I mean, this is not something that happens all the time.
Yeah, that's got to be pretty rare.
I mean, that's the ultimate. I've never seen or experienced anything like that. But that guy had it figured out.
Wow. Well, and that's, I mean, as someone who's owned a boat, and, you know, it's an old boat. I own a Westsail 32. It's 50 years old. And, you know, just like any other 50-year-old boat, there's issues that I constantly have to deal with. And I think that's one of the really wonderful parts about being able to charter and do it so extensively is that, you know, after your adventure's over, you kind of just give the guy your keys and you hop on a plane. Whereas like I constantly, and I enjoy doing this most times, but I have to move my boat from wherever I have it, maybe in Florida or the Carolinas. Once hurricane season comes in, I got to blast all the way up to the Cape or up to Maine. And then right as the fall comes in, as soon as the hurricane season's over, I basically have to bash my way, you know, back down. And, you know, it's pretty common to get caught up in pretty ugly gales. I obviously am doing this alone, so I'm going the offshore route. But I guess my point is that, you know, I think a lot of people who dream of the idea of like, oh, you know, I just want to sell it all and get a boat and just live that life. You can still get a good taste of that without the total pain, frustration, responsibility. And I mean, you know, people, I'm sure a lot of times look at like the price tag of a pretty high end charter and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that. But at the same time, if you go the other route and you buy a boat and you actually then start to see what it really costs to own a boat and the dockage and hauling the boat out and then, you know, repowering, all that. The list just goes on and on.
Well, that's worth talking about too, because you're exactly right. I mean, it's a very low commitment, you know, option here. It's a vacation in every sense of the word. The idea is you go and you get all the best that sailing has to offer, and then you toss the keys back and you dip out while we then deal with the maintenance and refueling and moving the boats around and dealing with hurricane season in the Caribbean and taking stuff out, all that. You don't even need to think about it. You just maximized your time on the water, squeezed every ounce of joy out of it, and then, you know, hang on to those memories forever. And then we deal with the hard part. But you talk about the pricing, because I mean, it's not a cheap vacation option by any means. You know, it's a once in a lifetime bucket list kind of thing for so many people. But there's ways, you know, you see the price tag, and you know, a sailing catamaran for a week can run you $15,000, 20 in high season, 25. I mean, it can get up there pretty quickly. But the idea is these boats now are, you know, 4 or 5 cabin boats. They all have generators and air conditioning and huge refrigeration systems. So it's a floating resort. It's not like back in the day where, you know, you are on a 2 or 3 cabin, 35-foot mono.
Hi, this is Alex Kantrowitz. I'm the host of Big Technology Podcast, a longtime reporter and an on-air contributor to CNBC. And if you're like me, you're trying to figure out how artificial intelligence is changing the business world and our lives. So each week on Big Technology, I bring on key actors from companies building AI tech and outsiders trying to influence it, asking where this is all going. They come from places like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, and plenty more. So if you want to be smart with your wallet, your career choices, in meetings with your colleagues, and at dinner parties, listen to Big Technology Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
The sun's shining, birds are singing, and all feels right in the world.
Until the season changes and suddenly you lose your motivation to get out of bed. In fact, 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, no matter the season or time of year.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all, because we want you to live your best life and be your best you all year round.
Please visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
Whole and, like true sailing with no AC, where you don't necessarily want to be stuck in the Caribbean with no AC in July. Now it's like you don't need to worry about it. It's a super comfortable place to be for the wives and the kids, and everyone can just spread out and have space on board. But it's also a great way to bring what a lot of people choose to do is they split it up. You have 4 or 5 cabins to work with, bring 2 families along, and you split the cost in half. If you bring 4 couples and you divvy up, 2 people in each cabin, you're splitting the same cost 4 ways. And all of a sudden, on a per person basis, it becomes a really affordable option when you compare it to, staying at an all-inclusive resort or something like that in the Caribbean as well. That's really kind of where the price point, when you're splitting up the cost of a charter vacation evenly like that, that's kind of where I would compare it to. The difference is you just get to take your amazing resort with you every day and get a new vista to wake up to, and you're not just kind of stuck swimming at the same swimming pool for a week.
Well, and it's
adventure in there.
And it's kind of, there's a really interesting sense that I always feel when I go and anchor off or, just hook up to a mooring buoy, and you have this feeling of like, this is my own private island. Yeah, I can hop in the dinghy, go to the dock and the bar and be around a bunch of people and have that kind of fun. But then I can also just get this little secluded little island that I have out here. And that's, I don't know, that one's kind of neat. I can see the benefits in staying at a place like Bitter End or Sabre Rock or something like that. And that's a great experience, but it's a shared experience, if you will. And then you get on that boat, though, and you find a nice little anchorage, on the backside of Prickly Pear, and you're the only one there, and nobody's on the beach. And that's something that you just can't find. It just, unless you're going to rent out Necker Island or something. But come on, let's be realistic.
Yeah, that's different stratosphere now. But no, I always try to imagine myself on the other side of that coin, where you mentioned Bitter End, amazing place to stay. Those overwater bungalows that they've built, like it's incredible. But I always imagine being one of those people in those bungalows, not really knowing about yacht charters yet, and you see all these boats come, and you talk to the people at the bar that night, and they're having a great time, and then you wake up the next morning and you watch them all put the sails up and start sailing off into the horizon. And you just think to yourself, like, where are they going next? That seems so cool. And it's like, well, I guess I'll go back to the bar today, go to the same pool, and then they're off, to this next new adventure that day. And that's kind of, it's not for everybody, but for me, I can't go back to just staying at one hotel. I think I need that sense of variety and a challenge, even on vacation now, just to keep it fresh every day. It's like a drug almost, a sense of adventure that just gets into you.
Yeah. Oh no, I definitely feel that one. I'm very excited. In the next probably 2 weeks, I get back down to Mighty Sparrow, and I had to fix the engine. Talk about maintenance. I had the engine, rotten wood in the hatch, a leak up on the front. I had some sewing to do, and the refrigeration system was broken, and I had to redo the entire propane system. Luckily, that's all done now, and when I get back there, I can actually get out there and do some sailing offshore, at least in March. And I don't know, man, sailing... It's impossible for me to describe how wonderful it is to basically, I've always called it like dancing with Mother Nature. And I mean, at its core, whether you're chartering or you're staying at a beach resort that has like Hobie cats and stuff like that, I mean, sailing is just, it's magical. I actually didn't even start until I was about 18 years old. And it sounds like you kind of got into it about 16, that same time.
17. Yeah, exactly the same.
Did you, when you guys did that first charter, So that would have been, you said 2006?
Something like that. 2006, 2007, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so that would have been probably just before I started working at Bitter End. But when you guys went up there, did you go rip on any of the Hobie Cats?
We did not actually. No. And actually, funny enough, I have never ripped on a Hobie Cat. All these years, even after learning how to sail, I've never done a Hobie Cat. So I definitely got to do that. We were even at the BVI this past summer, and we did the sea bobs that you guys have at the water sports, and we did the e-foils, which I had never done. That was awesome. The Hobie Cat was sitting there calling my name, and I definitely want to try it out next time.
Oh, that was so I left there to go do the solo nonstop in 2016, came down in 2000, or set off in 2017. And when I was refitting the boat up in Maine, was when obviously Hurricane Irma and Maria came through and devastated the landscape. And when I think of how fortunate I was to be there when, that water sports beach had, 100 different vessels between kayaks, windsurfers. You could barely squeeze all the Hobie Cats on that beach. And I'm so glad that they're starting to, keep everything growing and doing all that sort of stuff. But after seeing the devastation up there, I don't want to bring up any bad memories, but you guys must have been absolutely devastated by that.
Yeah. And it's actually crazy. There's not many people nowadays that were with the business, pre Irma. So it's kind of like, there's not many people I can kind of, talk about those days, because it was a huge challenge. I think we were really humming along as a business. I think the business had never been doing better. The BVI was the top destination. We were selling charters like hotcakes. Like, vibes were great. It was awesome. And then overnight, I think we lost 300 boats. In a matter of hours. And talk
you guys
about
keep them in
a huge percentage of our business globally that is centered in the BVI. Just overnight, it was gone, and we kind of had to take stock of like, wow, where do we go from here? And that's one of the cool things about the entire sailing community. And one of the things that really, to this day, resonates with me, that shows just how special the BVI is the entire sailing community worldwide kind of coming together. And it's like, everyone wanted to help restore this place because it's so special. Like, we can't let that be the end, because everyone has stories about the first time that they sailed there, or we got engaged there, or that was where my grandfather, took me on my vacation all the time. It's such a sentimental, special place to literally millions of people all over the world. And the support that we got and the entire charter community got, like, everyone just kind of pitched in their own way. And it took, years to rebuild not just the fleet, but the resort, and allow all of the out islands to rebuild. Bitter End only just got back online, recently. And that's kind of been the one that we were waiting on to kind of say, yeah, the BVI is officially back.
Yeah, right.
It just happened. So it's been a journey. And if you haven't been to the BVI since, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's just completely reinvented now, and it's so refreshing and just a positive place to be, where it's been a struggle. And even then, once we were kind of recovered, COVID happened. So we were ready to go. But
that's right.
So it was just one hit after another that kind of just achingly slow process back. But it's officially back, and I would say better than ever. It's just such an amazing place to see now, and having Bitter End back and spending time at Saba Rock, and I think Peter Island is back now. Like, all the hot spots that have been so famous for 50 years, chartering down there. It's like full back at full strength now. So it's really amazing.
Well, and I know they have a new Willie T, but is the old one still sitting there on the shore? Like, kind of half sunk?
I think so. I think the old one might still be right there, just as a little memory. But
you can still go snorkel it. Yeah, which is good. I don't know how many times I've jumped off the roof of the old one, but it's just what you do, right? Oh, man. Well, that's so great. It really is. It's really interesting to be able to get the behind the scenes look and get so much really top end information about the chartering fleet and about moorings and all the stuff that they offer. And I know we had said we weren't going to just talk about, but it really is such a fascinating subject. And I've seen it from, afar, and I've delved into it a little bit, but I can't thank you enough, Ian, for just getting into it. Cause it is like, I recommend everybody go down there if they ever get a chance, or if, I have a lot of clients who think about, they're like, I'd like to get a boat and I'd like to do this. And I'm always like, well, before you commit to that, go down and charter a boat, charter one with the captain, or if you've got the skill set, grab a bare boat and, see what the reality is of it. And you're going to enjoy yourself no matter what, especially if you're in the BVI. But like, it's, I don't know, it's just fascinating. And it's so well worth it. And like you kept saying, it is a once in a lifetime experience. It really is great.
Yeah. No, and I know we said this is not just going to turn into some sales pitch. We're both really passionate about it, obviously. And I think one thing that, I imagine 99% of the people listening to this podcast are probably sailors themselves. So we are absolutely preaching to the choir, as it were. But one of the coolest things about chartering through the years is it's the perfect opportunity to introduce sailing in a really manageable way to the people that you love, whether it's family or friends that may have never been down to the Caribbean in that way before, or they always wanted to sail but never had the opportunity. There is nothing cooler than bringing friends along for the first time. And when you first put the sails up in the Sir Francis Drake Channel heading, and the eyes get wide and they're like, wow, this is amazing. And you kind of become this unofficial tour guide in a way, but that is a really fun thing. And I can't wait to bring my kids. I got 2 kids now. My daughter's 7. My son just turned 3. So we were waiting for both of them to be, able to swim and really get the most out of going snorkeling and stuff down there. So I think we're probably another year away, but getting my kids down there, I mean, it's just going to be the most special time. So I cannot recommend it highly enough. And I think that's one of the things I want to get across as well is I think the Moorings kind of gets a bad rap of being just like this corporate giant, because we are a huge charter company globally, and we kind of maybe a faceless brand at times, but we're just a collection of people like me that fell in love with sailing. And when I'm working every day and we're putting together emails and advertisements, I don't feel so much like I'm selling it to people as much as I'm trying to show like, look, I had an amazing time, and I think you will too. And we have a bunch of people that have sailed all over the world that, we just spend our days talking about sailing and the best way to do it and the best places to go. And if there's one thing I've learned, sailors just like this, just love reminiscing about all the places they've been. So our days are pretty fun, filled with just memories like that, and just trying to help people experience it the best way they can. So.
I definitely agree. Like the idea of sharing the experience and introducing those who haven't done it. I mean, it is, it's something where you can hop on a boat, never having sailed before. And maybe it's, your friend or your uncle or your parents that are in charge of the boat, and they're taking you around and they're showing you the ropes. Like you kind of, if you've got the skill set and you got a bunch of friends or family that have never done it, go and watch, Captain Ron, the movie with Kurt Russell. And I always recommend people who are going down there, watch that first, because, you pull out your Captain Ron, it brings the family together. It's this, it's just such a great experience in so many different ways. And the absolute easiest and probably, I think, the best way to do it is, at least in the beginning, is to hop on a charter boat. So you're in the right business, sir. You're in the business of experience. And
that's right.
And, bringing that to so many people. And I really appreciate you sharing all this stuff. Hopefully it was, good to chat, but also good to get the word out, because again, not only are we ambassadors for the BVI, I always brag as much as I possibly can about it, but all the different companies that make up the islands and the jobs and all that sort of stuff. You're a big, huge part of it. So I appreciate anybody that tries to spread the word, but is also, just trying to get people down there.
Definitely. No, and I think you're exactly right. I mean, ambassadors of the BVI, ambassadors of the sailing lifestyle, because that's what it is. I think so many people, I can imagine you're, I don't know, you grow up in Nebraska or something and you see these videos of people sailing and it might seem so unattainable, so distant, something that you'll never get to do. But then, yeah, it's just a flight away, and it's a really amazing way that you don't need to necessarily sail around the world. You don't need to be an Olympic sailor. You don't need to be hydrofoiling or whatever you see on TV at the America's Cup nowadays. Like, it's everything, that all these different angles of the sport of sailing that just seems so intimidating, but it doesn't need to be like that just to dip your toes in the water and have an amazing time on a boat. So I think we're the perfect kind of ambassadors to get anyone and everyone involved, and then from there the world is your oyster, so yeah, it's been a pleasure, man.
Absolutely. Well, and no better way to end it. The world, as long as you're willing to take that first little leap and get out there. I mean, and I'm not saying I'm the perfect example of that, but I essentially hopped on a Hobie Cat when I was 18 years old. And then, by the time I was in my mid 30s, I was out there doing a solo nonstop around the world.
The rest is history. Yeah.
The rest is history. So awesome. Well, Ian, thank you so much. I will for sure put any links or anything in the description of this episode. But is there any shout outs that you want to throw out there while you got a minute?
Gosh, no, I really appreciate the time. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And give us a call. We're all based in Florida, so we're just a phone call away. And if anyone wants to chat with me or my friends about sailing, we're happy to do exactly that all day long. We'll get you on a boat, no problem. So we're here to help.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for coming on the show, Ian. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. You as well. Till next time.
Hi, this is Alex Kantrowitz. I'm the host of Big Technology Podcast, a longtime reporter and an on-air contributor to CNBC. And if you're like me, you're trying to figure out how artificial intelligence is changing the business world and our lives. So each week on Big Technology, I bring on key actors from companies building AI tech and outsiders trying to influence it, asking where this is all going. They come from places like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, and plenty more. So if you want to be smart with your wallet, your career choices, in meetings with your colleagues, and at dinner parties, listen to Big Technology Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
The sun's shining, birds are singing, and all feels right in the world.
Until the season changes, and suddenly you lose your motivation to get out of bed. In fact, 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, no matter the season or time of year.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all, because we want you to live your best life and be your best you all year round.
Please visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.